Charlie Chaplin is perhaps the most well-known movie star of all time. His signature mustachioed face and bowler hat are iconic, and his slapstick, black and white silent movies are the very foundations of the film industry. But the beloved actor, who was arguably the first megastar, had dark and depraved tendencies. According to a Vice article written by Lauren Euler, he had a miserable start to life. His mother was severely mentally ill and his father was a deadbeat. He was born in London on April 1889 into a life of poverty. It has also been suggested by the Daily Mail that his mother had to resort to selling herself when his father left. It was also speculated that his father left because she was cheating on him. According to History.com, he also spent 18 months in a boarding school for orphans, and his mother was committed to a mental institution soon after. His father died at the age of 37 from alcoholism. As a child, he had a flair for performing. He was a clog dancer first and later learned performance comedy from the legendary Fred Karno. Peter Ackroyd's biography, Charlie Chaplin: A Brief Life, claimed that he was the most famous man in the world by the age of 26. It also claimed he was a prolific womanizer and used his fame to sleep with around 2,000 women during his lifetime. Ackroyd further states that these women fell victim to his growing ego and sense of self-importance. He married 16-year-old Mildred Harris in 1918 when she fell pregnant, not out of love but merely to protect his image and avoid the shame of having a child out of wedlock. However, it turned out that this was a false alarm or a baby trap. Charlie was infuriated when he found out. Rightly so, some may say. However, his brutal treatment of her could never be excused, especially since she was still legally a child when they married. He would verbally bully her and leave her without explanation for days on end, sleeping with numerous women all over the place. When she did finally fall pregnant, it was too late. Triggered by his mistreatment, she had a nervous breakdown. The child also died shortly after birth as it was malformed. He divorced her soon after and he became even more of a deviant in his next marriage. He had a brief affair with Peggy Hopkins Joyce. Interestingly, this is the woman that the term gold digger was allegedly invented to describe. She had previously married and divorced 5 millionaires. He then met and began grooming a 12-year-old named Lolita McMurray, an apt name considering her age. However, he allegedly did not pursue the girl until she reached the age of 15. She had also become pregnant and Chaplin married her in secret. It has also been claimed that he only married her to escape any convictions of sleeping with a minor. To add insult to injury, straight after the wedding, he left her and went fishing on his own. Charlie had done everything he could to avoid responsibility with her. At first, he pressured her to get rid of the baby and even suggested she marry someone else to look after her and the child, even offering a dowry of $20,000. She refused both offers. She had 2 of his children and was divorced in 1927 when her own acting career had failed. To avoid any confusion, the girl was also known as Lita Gray. He apparently experienced extreme OCD and paranoia, showering up to 8 times a day and installing listening devices and his wife's bedroom. He also patrolled the hallways at night with a pistol. When she divorced him, she accused him of pointing a gun at her. She also suggested that he had forced himself on her numerous times, claiming it was his right as a husband. In the divorce, she was given the largest settlement in history at that time. She received $625,000 and a $200,000 trust fund for her sons. He also allegedly married former child model Paulette Goddard, and unlike many females that lie to men to pretend they are over 18, she actually lied and said she was 17. Her doing this speaks volumes for the preferences of Charlie. She was actually 22. He was again controlling of her and her career, and the starlet soon left him. While still married, he met his next conquest, Joan Barry, also known as Mary Louise Gribble. The FBI, who had been investigating him for his political leanings, brought charges against him and Barry. They had charged him with the Mann Act, aka the White Slave Traffic Act. This act stated that a person cannot cross state lines to engage in prostitution or immoral behaviour. Documents revealed that Barry travelled from LA to New York for several parties in which she was given to other men for immoral purposes. Charlie Chaplin, in fact, was notorious for arranging these types of parties for friends in the industry such as Fatty Arbuckle and other elites. Incredibly, he was forced to pay child support for Barry's child that she falsely said was his, even after blood work proved he was not the father. Later, after the court case, when his reputation was rightly in tatters, he was denied re-entry to America when he attended his movie premiere in London. It seemed the American government were tired of his deviant preferences and ties to communism. When he arrived in England, he claimed he was not a communist. Whilst the court case was still ongoing, he met his final wife, Una O'Neill. At the age of 54, he married the 18-year-old and they had 8 children together. Many publications, such as Ranker, accredit him with inventing the casting couch. In this article, film historian Kevin Browning claims Chaplin would use auditions as an excuse to fulfill his depraved fantasies. He would not even talk to the girls, only giving them caption cards when he wanted to communicate. These cards would become increasingly lewd and suggestive. He would get them to undress as he groped them in a creepy, over-exaggerated way, like a mime artist. He would then make them stand naked in front of him as he threw custard pies at them. This is a problem all too familiar in modern Hollywood. But it seems that from the inception of film, there has always been a problem with predators. Powerful men using their wealth and influence to prey upon young girls. Perhaps the acceptance of Charlie's unacceptable and often illegal appetites normalised this behaviour and left a devastating legacy for the young women of the film industry. He was a man of many contradictions. He was the most universally known comedian in the world, yet was grumpy, depressive, unsociable and mean in real life. He was also an authoritative tyrant to his partners and children, despite being a communist. Marlon Brando, in his autobiography, also described him as a fearsomely cruel man. Quoting from his book, He was an egotistical tyrant and a penny pincher. He harassed people when they were late and scolded them unmercifully to work faster. Worst of all, he treated his son Sidney, who played my sidekick, cruelly in front of everyone. It was also bemusing that Charlie Chaplin, the greatest symbol of rags to riches and the perfect embodiment of capitalistic success, would become a communist. Even when he died, there was one last scandal. Grave robbers dug up his body and demanded $600,000 in ransom for it. His wife refused the ransom and the robbers were soon caught.